Well, this young man here has directed About Last Night, a motion picture, but by golly, the television background is what I'd like to get into first, Ed Zwick.
Okay.
At the age of, was it 25, you were producing Family?
Right.
What TV had you done prior to that?
That was actually my first job, but it was several years previous. No, not a bad start at all. It was previous to that. I began as a writer for the show. There were two wonderful producers, Nigel and Carol McKeon, and they offered me an opportunity to begin writing. I wrote for a year and a half, became the head writer of the show, began directing on the show, and then eventually, when they left it all in my lap to produce it.
The folks you're talking to right now are from Lawrence and Kansas City. Lawrence, Kansas. Does that ring any bells?
Sure does.
We know Apocalypse. And your special bulletin was yet another example, a very good one, of the possibilities of Apocalypse. Special bulletin seems to have been a very brave thing to have done on TV, especially for its time. You want to talk about it a little bit?
Well, I think, it wasn't necessarily brave of us to have done it. It was brave of the network to have been willing to put it on. I think I think possibly in the beginning they didn't know quite what they were going to get, but once they saw what it was that we had done, they stood to their convictions. I'm speaking particularly of Brandon Tartikoff and of Grant Tinker, who and Perry Lafferty at that time, who went to bat for it. And because there were others in the network who were less willing to see the light of day. And I don't know. I like to think that finally it was its own qualities that led it demand to be seen. And I also might add some of the television critics to whom I had shown the movie prior to its completion, just for fear of this very thing happening where people might object to it, so that Howard Rosenberg of the LA Times and Tom Shales of the Washington Post and some other guys really championed it.
At the risk of overgeneralizing, is it accurate to say that the movies once had an exclusive province over this kind of topic? Now we seem to see it more on television, if not Apocalypse, social issues general.
Well, I think that the studios and exhibitors and distributors fear that audiences might not be willing to pay money to see issues that they can see in their homes for free, having to do with social issues. Also, that they may not be willing to just see issues that are anything less than escapist, which is obviously what social filmmaking is. But
television used to be the prime vehicle for that.
I know that it's an irony, isn't it? I guess that as television has become more sophisticated and can cover a broader range of subjects, that movie makers have felt. I don't think, frankly, that it's the television that has only glommed onto this topic and tackled it. I think it's been abdicated by the filmmakers. I think that socially responsible filmmaking and issue-oriented filmmaking has always been an integral part of the filmmaking process, all the way back to Robert Flaherty and whomever.
But now we can kind of rub our hands and say we're hitting the viewer literally where they live, at home, with these dramas.
That's right.
Somewhat akin to the Warner Brothers social problem films of the 30s, maybe.
Right. They were always B movies. With certain exceptions of maybe Grapes of Wrath and the like. The province of the B movie now is the television movie, the specific genre picture that might be about a single issue. I think it's not a bad home for it, in that it does guarantee 20, 30 million people. When a movie is a hit, how many million people go to it? Now, you would know better than I in terms of numbers, but not nearly that many.
Now, given the fact that the TV outlets are there, what still remains the prime drawback to this spate of television movies? And maybe what's the virtue?
The drawback to it...
Is there a drawback?
To the TV movie?
Can the TV movies handle these problems sufficiently?
No, there is a limitation. There's a limitation of money and time. You shoot a television movie in 20 days, and sometimes it's very difficult to get the kind of texture and realism needed to depict an honest-to-God social problem. There are also demands, which are always the two gods of serving the ratings game. Must you exploit these issues in order to guarantee numbers? And I think that's a very delicate balance to tread.
What has come to you in the way of a gratifying response from the family drama of Family to the apocalyptic subject matter of Special Bulletin? What's made you feel good about having done those pictures?
Knowing that it's funny, because you do television and it sort of goes out across this vast silence, and they tell you it's 20, 30 million people, but you don't know it. And the only way you know it is with when people actually, they write letters, and people say to you, I saw this show and it made me think twice about this in my life, or touched me deeply, or whatever, that certainly is a real gratification.
Was a man like Leonard Goldberg kind of a good forward observer for you? He paved the way?
He really gave me a very, very big break in my career, because he, when the producers left Family, it was he who offered me the job to produce it. He also produced a television movie that I did, one of the first long-form TV pieces I did. He's been a good friend and a real supporter.
Let's switch gears now.
Okay.
About last night, yeah, let's throw it into third here. You have done something only most of us can fantasize about.
What's that?
Return to your hometown in triumph.
That's right.
Tell us about it.
Well, imagine having left a town at the end of high school and gone off into the world. 17, coming back 10, 15 years later with an $8 million movie and seeing your high school friends on the street.
With Rob Lowe,
with various movie stars and nice suites in hotels and expensive restaurants. It is a kind of a local boy made good fantasy.
Producer Jason Brett brags that they closed down an entire street of bars out of which he had been thrown out of all of them at one time or another.
None of which I was ever allowed into because I wasn't old enough.
So a lot of kind of hometown loving going into this location.
Absolutely, absolutely. Not only were the producers and I and the screenwriters from Chicago, but so was Jim Belushi and Elizabeth Perkins. And it's just, you can bring a certain feel to, I mean, it's odd to talk about a sense of place, but you do talk about it when you read a novel, or you do talk about it when you see a movie, and if it's there, you know it.
Well, do you share with us sometimes that irritation at the same old palm tree and same old LA street location on every movie?
It's supposed to be New York.
Right. I mean, that gets so old. This is a chance to get back to the neighborhood.
I agree.
Now, if you were going to go someplace away from the neighborhood in another movie project, where would it be?
Oh, someplace above 6,000 feet.
I mean, movie making is a great way to travel.
Yeah, it sure is. In fact, you know, when you sit down at the typewriter and you think about fade in, boy, you're very tempted to say fade in, you know, the Côte d'Azur, you know, fade in Rome. It doesn't always work that way. I'd love to make a film in the mountains. I love the mountains.
Fair enough. Now, finally, Ed, speak to those of us over 25.
Yes.
Looking for a movie about ourselves. Maybe we're a little bit weary of some of the things we've seen lately. What do you have for us in About Last Night?
This movie is about something that all of us have gone through in the not too distant past. I'm 33, but in some measure I'm not 10 years away from the years in which I was 23. Those problems of intimacy and commitment and relating and moving in, moving out, breaking up are still very present in my life and very familiar. And I think that if I'm given an opportunity as a moviegoer to look at something that I'm going through and find it funny, as well as maybe find it sad, then I'm going to have a good time in the movies. That's what I want to see. I'm a little tired of planes and ghosts and fishes. Good for you, Ed Zwick. And tell hello to the neighborhood. I'll do that for us, okay? And you know what? We're not even coming from Chicago. It's from Dallas. For KCTV5, I'm John Tibbetts.